Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto become a ghost? Part 1. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time let's get into the video. Breathing heavily, Naruto looked at the unmoving figure of Uchiha Sasuke, his longtime rival, and yet at the same time, best friend. Also, the same person who tried to betray Konoha. When the fight started, it became clear early on that Sasuke outclassed him in every category. All but one. His Kage Bunshin proved invaluable, and combined that with his awesome Rasengan, it had given him victory. Dadabeo. The blonde-haired struggled to get up and saw his sensei approaching. He waved excitedly. Kakashi-sensei. Over here. Kakashi, whom had noticed his pupil much sooner, was already taking in the entire scene. The Valley of the End was moderately damaged due to the fight that had just occurred. He came to a halt in front of Naruto and looked at the unconscious Uchiha before finally settling upon Naruto. His eyes turned into an upside-down U form. Well, I'm pleasantly surprised that you managed to stop him from doing anything more than what he just did. He patted the blonde on his head before moving to Sasuke, picking him up from the ground. What about the others, Kakashi-sensei? Shikamaru, Choji, but before the genin could continue, Kakashi put his hand up, stopping the hyperactive kid. Relax Naruto. They're all fine, all taken care of. They should be back home right about now. Kakashi started to make his first steps to start off the return journey. Are you ready to go? The Jinchuriki looked down at his clothing and pouted. Look at my clothes. It's completely ruined. That team is definitely going to buy new ones for me. Kakashi gave him the once-over and smiled, which remained unseen for Naruto. It's an improvement, you should keep it. He turned around, facing the direction he came from. Naruto directed his pout to his sensei. There's nothing wrong with orange, Kakashi-sensei. Now. Let me tell you all about how I kicked Sasuke's ass. It all started with Naruto started telling how the entire story went down. Not paying attention to Kakashi's heavy sigh. By the time they arrived at the gate, Naruto's eyelids were slowly wavering in its attempt to keep his eyes open. Despite it all, he couldn't wait to let Sakura-chan know of his success. However, upon arrival it soon became clear that the villagers had gotten wind of something going on with the Uchiha. So, when the Kakashi came dashing in with Sasuke in his arms, whom was covered in wounds and bruises, they became worried about the health of the last loyal Uchiha. It didn't help the situation at all when they saw the brat barging in straight after, looking almost equally bruised, yet missing any cuts or wounds he had previously. It didn't take the citizen of Konoha long to figure out that, whatever happened to Uchiha Sasuke, it was Naruto's fault. You went too far this time, you brat. One spat at the blonde. You'll fucking pay for what you did. An older man screamed. Naruto was taken aback by the sudden insults, but tried to shrug it off after recollecting himself quickly. He held his head up high and sped up, going after his sensei. After Sasuke was admitted into the hospital and Naruto got debriefed, he finally had the chance to recollect himself. After eating 3 meager bowls of ramen at Ichiraku's, he chose the shortest path to his home, hoping to avoid the angry mob that apparently were out to get him. When he got home, it was where Naruto nearly reached his breaking point. The windows were smashed in, and the walls were smeared with foul words. It had happened in the past, but he had hoped that after he had been made genin those days would soon be behind him. It never stops. He created a couple of Kage Bunshins and started cleaning it up, muttering and cursing the bastards who had trashed his home. I'll show 'em. Once I'm Hokage, they will have to look up to me and respect me. He held his head high. The young blonde knew that despite all those people who hated him, there were still people that did care. His old teammates, Iruka-sensei, Kakashi-sensei. A smile formed on his face. Even Tsunade Bachan and even Iro-senin, with their weird tendencies. Now that I think about it, why are all the older shinobi so crazy weird? Kakashi-sensei with his perverted books, or Bachan with her stupid gambling, I'm not going to be like that. No way. Dadabeo. He was going to keep training, to get stronger, to protect the people who were the most important to him. After cleaning up and having slept for a couple of hours, he decided to see how everyone was doing and headed to the hospital. This time he stuck to the rooftops, dodging any attempt the villagers could have made. The blonde genin arrived at the hospital fairly quickly, having darted across the rooftops in an orange blur. He walked inside and walked to the front desk and waited for the guy in front of him to finish before it was his turn. You really should pay more attention to your surroundings, brat. A voice whispered in his ear. The blonde responded by jumping in the air, startled to say the least. He turned around angrily and saw none other than Iro-senin. Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to drool on some women? The Sannin in return slammed his fist on top of the blonde's head. I'm here to look at that seal my old teammate put on Sasuke. And stop calling me Iro-senin. He shouted in the blonde's ear before dragging him along towards the Uchiha's room. How are the others doing? Kakashi didn't really say what was going on with them. The blonde asked in concern. They'll be alright, considering who you guys went up against. Tsunade took care of them personally. Naruto smiled in relief, glad to hear his friends were going to be okay. They better. The first thing Naruto noticed was the two Anbu stationed in front of Sasuke's room. Why are they here? He asked with a large amount of distrust. Jiraiya in return sighed. Because he tried to betray the village, why else do you think? Come on, let's go inside. The guards barely seemed to register the two newcomers, they merely nodded to the Sannin. Once inside, Naruto rushed over to the bed and noticed the still form of Sakura sleeping in the chair next to bed. He softly shook her, trying to wake her up. Sakura-chan, wake up. She softly stirred before slowly opening her eyes. She yawned and stretched herself. Once her eyes were fully focused, did she sneer at him. What did you do, Naruto? She half shouted while pointing her finger at him. Look at him, he's a mess. How could you do this to him? Jiraiya backed out, not wanting to be on the receiving end of the rage that eerily reminded him of Tsunade. Naruto back up, eyes wide and full of surprise. Uchiha. What does it even matter if he's banged up? He's back. Orochimaru didn't get his hands on him, that's what matters. Because of your barbaric actions, he may have permanent damage to his nerves in his hand. There's a chance he may never be able to properly mold chakra again. She shouted, marching towards him, her fist already raised. Jiraiya butted in. Let's give her time to calm down, kid. She's almost exactly like Tsunade when she's on a warpath. He ushered Naruto outside, quickly closing the door before the pink-haired monstrosity could do any harm to the blonde. Once they were outside the hospital, did Jiraiya turn to the blonde. Listen, I have to start looking for Orochimaru's base, why don't you lay low for a while? I know that a couple of the old hags are out for blood. Catch a good night's rest and in a couple of days this will all blow over. He gave the blonde a slap on the shoulder. Naruto grumbled something. Can't I just come with you? Sorry kid, but I ain't taking you on a mission that takes you anywhere near that snake. I'll be back in a couple of days. And with that, the legendary Sannin disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto walked down the street, heading to Ichiraku Ramen. His thoughts wandered back to his fight with Sasuke. He had won, there was no doubt in that, but it didn't feel like one with Sakura freaking out like she had. And what if it was true what she had said? What if he has to quit because I screwed up his hand beyond recognition? Suddenly even Ramen didn't sound appealing to him, instead he turned right and headed to the Hokage monument, intent on sitting there for a while. As per usual, he ignored the hated looks and insults, or he tried to at least. In his mind he was replaying the entire ordeal that had happened. Luckily the squad that was formed to retrieve Sasuke was alright. From what he had heard from Jiraiya, they were incredibly lucky after everything that had happened. He sat down on top of the Yondaime's head, unknown to him still that the Yondaime was in fact his father. I'll never get bored of this view. With a grin he laid down on his back. Maybe everything would be alright. The next day he visited Choji, who had only this morning had woken up. Upon arriving he noticed that he wasn't the only one who wanted to visit the Akimichi. Good to see you're alright, Naruto. Niji said with a polite nod to the blonde. Niji? You're alright. Niji gave a rare smile, his entire shoulder was taped to his chest and bandaged heavily. It seemed fate smiled down on me. Naruto facepalmed. Don't tell me you're starting with that whole fate crap again, are you? The Hyuga raised a single eyebrow. That was a joke. Before the blonde could respond, Shikamaru spoke up instead. Troublesome, you really have to work on your social skills, Niji. Naruto turned around and saw the recently promoted Chunin standing in the door opening. He couldn't help and grin at him. It looks like everyone is alright then. Naruto had already heard about Kiba's condition and slow but steady recovery. Shikamaru glanced towards the bed where Choji was sleeping. All things considering, we went up against Orochimaru's elite and we survived. Not only that, we got Sasuke back as well. Choji managed to say between his gasps for air. Everyone turned to the Akimichi. Take it easy, Choji. There will be time enough to catch up. Shikamaru said as he hurried to his best friend's side. Without Lee we wouldn't have, if he hadn't helped me with that Bonagai, I doubt we would have caught up with Sasuke. Niji nodded. We were lucky not only with Lee, but with our allies from Suna as well. I wouldn't be standing here otherwise, Shikamaru muttered with clenched fists. Choji seemed to notice and tried to sit up. It doesn't matter in the end. We all survived and succeeded in the mission, that's all that matters. At that moment Kakashi walked in, his perverted book present as per usual. You are right, Choji. You worked together as a team and brought the mission to a successful close. You went up against Jonin Elite. You all should be very proud. Pride swelled up and Naruto laughed. We were awesome. We should all be Chunin. Kakashi snapped his book shut. Naruto, let's go see if Sasuke's awake. Naruto waved at the retrieval squad and quickly followed in his sensei's footsteps. You know, Kakashi began casually, glancing down at the blonde. This will surely be put in your file as a commendation and will help you along towards the rank of Chunin. Naruto's eyes grew wide as saucers. Really? That is super cool. I'll be Chunin before Sasuke or Sakura. I can't wait to show em off. Naruto, I didn't say it was a guarantee promotion. All I said was that it would help you along. Naruto didn't listen, he was already far away in his fantasy. They turned a corner and noticed the stationed Anbu still standing guard in front of the Uchiha's room. As soon as they approached, the Anbu turned to them. Kakashi-senpai. He gave a nod to the silver-haired Jonin. Itutsuko, is that you? That's been a while, he turned to the blonde. Go ahead, I'll see you inside in a bit. Naruto entered the room and noticed that Sakura wasn't here this time. He walked towards the bed and hesitated when he noticed that his wounded teammate was awake. Hey Sasuke, he slowly began. Sasuke looked up, and as soon as he did, the blonde froze. The pure unfiltered hatred that sprang from the Uchiha's eyes came as a surprise to Naruto. What have you done? Naruto wanted to take another step forward, but instead had to take several steps back as Sasuke jumped out of his bed. Sasuke, you were trying to betray us, I'm not giving up on you that easily. Naruto raised his voice, his own anger now reaching a boiling point. Sasuke roared in anger. You ruined everything. I hate you. How am I supposed to get strong enough now to kill Itachi? I'll kill you. He swung his good fist at Naruto, who was stunned, unable to believe what his best friend was saying. As the fist was about to slam into his face, it instead got blocked by a fingerless gloved hand. Sasuke looked up, seething with hatred. It was Kakashi who had once again come to save the day. What do you think you're doing, Sasuke? Kakashi asked sternly, his gaze snapping from the blonde to the black-haired Sharingan user. Sasuke pulled his arm out of Kakashi's grasp and turned around and was slowly walking back to his bed. Why do you even care? Just leave me alone. Kakashi nodded to the Anbu, who had rushed in the same moment Kakashi had. Itutsuko left the room, resuming his guard duty. What the hell has happened to our team? Why is it always when I turn my back for a single moment that the two of you always end up fighting each other? He turned to Naruto first, who was looking down to his hands, with a sad look on his face. We're supposed to be a team. Where is the Sasuke and Naruto who could go toe-to-toe with Haku with teamwork that I haven't seen in so long? I suggest you change this attitude and fast, otherwise we're going to be doing this my way, and you'll be wishing you listened to me the first time around. If I hear from the guards that something like this happens again, there will be severe consequences for the both of you. Naruto wanted to speak up and say that he hadn't done anything, but Kakashi had already left through the window. He turned to Sasuke, pondering what he should say. It was then the door opened once more and Sakura came in. Sasuke-kun. Are you Awa? She immediately noticed the tense situation between the two. What have you done this time, Naruto Baka? Nothing, I'll just leave. He walked with slumped shoulders to the door. Brushing past Sakura. How about you stay away? We never wanted you. You always were nothing but trouble. Sakura sneered at him, slamming the door behind him. Naruto walked down the corridor. All his hopes of a peaceful resolution had gone out the window. There was no way that Team 7 would stay together after all that. He exited the hospital and aimlessly walked around the village for hours. The words of Sasuke and Sakura echoing through his head. I'll kill you. Eventually he ended up at his apartment, but once more it had been trashed, along with hateful insults that were written on the walls. Tears welled up in his eyes and he turned around, resuming his trek through the village. How did this all happen? He passed by a restaurant that was not completely unlike Ichiraku's. Inside he could hear his sensei's voice. I know Suma, but I wonder if it isn't best if I shuffle the team and replace Naruto with another genin. This way if Sasuke is pardoned from his crime, then he could focus on his training. If Naruto stays on this team, it's inevitable they will end up fighting each other again, and this time it could end much worse. As long as you don't think about trading him with one of mine. I seriously wouldn't know how to handle the kid, especially if what you told me about his little incident is true. A second voice answered. Naruto immediately identified him as Asuma. I can't believe what I'm hearing, how could you even dare to consider such a thing about Naruto? He has good intentions, you can't simply replace him like a piece of clothing. A female voice spoke up in disbelief. Naruto slumped against the wall, tears rolling down his face. Even Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi sighed. Naruto's intentions are good, and he certainly made me proud during the retrieval mission, but the little things he does do right doesn't outweigh all the bad. The female voice once more spoke up, but Naruto had heard enough. He wiped the tears from his face and sprinted to the Hokage monument once more, his surroundings a blur. In one day I've lost Sasuke, Sakura and Kakashi-sensei, is it something I did wrong? I brought him back and I get treated like this? His train of thought got interrupted by a Chunin. Uzumaki-san, your presence is ordered by the Hokage. And before Naruto could ask why, the Chunin had already disappeared. Naruto made a sharp turn and headed to the Hokage tower, the one person he knew wouldn't abandon him. With his arms crossed behind his head, he walked into the Hokage's office, trying to hide his sadness with a grin. What's up, Bachan? Close the door please, Naruto. Tsunade asked, her hands clasped together, supporting her head. Naruto noticed a small group of people who were standing beside Tsunade, whom he vaguely remembered as the advisors to the late Sandaime. He closed the door behind him and turned back to the group. What's going on? She sighed, sadness and guilt were easily shown on her face. Naruto, she began, trying her best to keep her emotions in check. Because of your recent loss of control of the Kyuubi's chakra, you are a potential liability. We had hoped that with your Aya guidance you would be able to restrain yourself, but it seems we were wrong. Tomorrow there will be a seal placed upon your chakra pathways, forever blocking it, you will no longer be a shinobi. I am sorry, Naruto. Naruto stumbled back, barely able to comprehend what was going on. I did not lose control of Kyuubi's chakra. I was in full control of it during the entire fight. He couldn't believe what was going on. At this point Homura joined in. Sasuke Uchiha begs to differ, Genin. He saw red chakra envelop your body, including a tail. You were losing control of the Kyuubi's chakra, we can't allow such a risk to remain unrestrained and free in our village, you should consider yourself lucky, if not for the Hokage, we would have taken a more drastic approach. Being a shinobi is all I have left. Don't take that away from me, please. I didn't lose control. The decision is final, you will report to the Hokage tomorrow, at 2 in the afternoon. Kahara Udatane butted in, standing to the right of Tsunade. Tsunade looked in his eyes as her head still leaned on her intertwined fingers. There's nothing I can do, Naruto. They overruled me. I am so sorry. Naruto's eyes darted from the left to the right. He slowly turned to the door, swaying from the left to the right. This can't be happening to me. Naruto, are you alright? Tsunade asked as she stood up from her seat, concerned for the boy she considered family. The blonde started breathing heavily, he fell to one knee. They can't do this to me. After everything I've done for them. After everything they've done to me. The attendants in the room stared at the boy in surprise, but lacked any concern, except for Tsunade, whom was crouching beside him. Naruto, you need to slow your breathing, you're hyperventilating. Naruto pushed her away. Leave me alone. He stood up and wobbled of trying to regain his composure. It took the blonde a while to get his breathing back under control. He arrived at his thrashed apartment. By now there was only one emotion left that coursed through his veins. Hate. Pure and utter hatred for everyone inside the village. From the lowly villagers to the very Hokage herself. So, they think I'm a liability, huh? They want to never see me again, well that can easily be arranged. He softly, yet harshly spoke to himself. He tore his headband from his head and placed it on the table. He reached for a kunai and with one swift motion slashed through the leaf symbol. He rammed the kunai in the desk. He started packing his stuff, whatever wasn't destroyed he stuffed into his backpack. He gave one last glance around his apartment and then grabbed a piece of power and started scribbling something down. Once done, he looked at it with satisfaction that was fueled further by his anger. Your liability is gone forever, leave me be, and I will leave you be. If you don't, I will let the Kyuubi loose inside this village. This is a promise and I never break my promises. I hope you will all rot in hell. Naruto Uzumaki. Without hesitation he left the apartment, surprised that there weren't any Anbu guarding him. He slowly and silently slipped through the alleys, refraining from using the rooftops. Eventually he came at the main gate and noticed that there were 2 chunin playing with a pack of cards. He created a Kage Bunshin and then proceeded to hinge them into 2 gorgeous girls. He positioned the 2 clones just within eyesight of the guards and started making contact with a few people still roaming on the streets. It certainly didn't take long before the guards noticed the girls and started waving and trying to make small talk. The clones in return only waved back and made a couple of flirty gestures. The blonde needed all the attention on the girls and not on him. He slowly snuck past the gatehouse and dashed towards the forest, quickly hiding behind a bush when he reached the tree line. He glanced around, trying to see if anyone saw him sneak out. It doesn't seem anyone saw me. Alright, time to gain some distance. I need to lure them into an opposite direction. The blonde turned to the west and started off slowly, trying to gain as little attention as possible before maximizing his speed. He had to gain distance and fast before turning his attention to his real destination, Nami no Kuni. 1 month had passed since Naruto's abrupt departure from Konoha, and surprisingly, there hadn't been any retrieval squads or hunter nin that had investigated Nami no Kuni. Perhaps the false trail he had set up had helped, or perhaps they weren't even trying to find him, and why should they? In the eyes of Konoha he was the demon they wanted to get rid of. Naruto in return didn't care about them, if they did find him he would do what was necessary to stay out of Konoha's clutches, even if that meant killing his former friends. All his friends had abandoned him the moment he needed them most. Tsunade had betrayed him. He couldn't suppress the sneer that crawled upon his face. Those bastards. They were eager to jump into the fire to rescue Sasuke, the moment I need help, they were nowhere to be found. He was wandering through the village of Nami no Kuni, adopting a smile instead of the sneer. The people here were kind and helpful. They knew who he was, and after he had told his situation, the village accepted him in open arms. He felt at place, which was strange, considering all that had happened. The moment he had arrived, he dumped his orange jumpsuit and bought a dark blue long-sleeved shirt with matching pants. He had his pouch strapped to his right leg, filled with kunai and shuriken. He also bought himself a shoulder strap that went from his right shoulder to his waist on his lower left side. This too he had filled with kunai. The outfit change was the second thing on his list. The first was meeting up with Tazuna and his family. They took him in without him even having to ask for help. They gave him their spare room along with the promise he could stay for as long as he wanted. However, he couldn't slack off. Training was something that had slacked off in the first week of his arrival, but the blonde had picked it up the second with a fairly harsh training regime that Kakashi would be proud of, or so he at least thought before remembering the words his sensei had uttered in that restaurant. Every day he trained himself to his limit with a tight schedule. The Genin Nukenin would assign different tasks for every day of the week, starting every Monday with an intense taijutsu training, using his Kage Bunshin as his opponents. Those days were used to increase his chakra control. It had improved steadily when he was still on Team 7, but often it would be skipped or interrupted due to missions or other assignments Kakashi had them do. Naruto knew that chakra control was something that he needed to improve and fast. His Wednesdays were spent on brushing up on his sword skills, which were simply put terrible. Luckily there was an old retired samurai, Kai, that had been helping him with this part of his training. Thursdays he would repay the debt he owed Tazuna's family by helping Tsunami around the house, gathering groceries or cleaning the house. She had vehemently refused his help at first, but he had insisted, and with the help of his clones, they were always done fairly quickly. If that was the case, he would help Tazuna with his work, which now amounted to the construction of new homes and other yet similar work. This included the building of a wall to keep out any future threats, as well as giving the villagers a sense of safety. And on Friday he would train Gain Jutsu, which was as awful as a cup of ramen that was past its expiring date. The weekend was wasted on relaxing and sparring with Inari, who was showing more and more interest in the shinobi life. He even went with him on Wednesday to watch him train, talking with Kai and asking for tips. He noticed the sun was setting, so he hurried along. He knew dinner was most likely already on the table. He smiled when he saw his new home and dashed the last few meters, at least he was, until he slammed into Inari. "Watch where you're going." Inari looked up and shoved the blonde off of him. "No. You watch where you're going." Naruto picked himself up and dragged the kid by his arm towards the door. "I did. And then you decided to jump in front of me." "I did not." "You did. Did not. Did so." The bickering continued as they entered the living room and sat down at the table, oblivious to the looks Tsunami and Tazuna were giving them. "You're lucky I used my awesome abilities to slow down, or otherwise you'd have been seriously hurt," Naruto boasted, ignoring the own voice inside his head that said liar, 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 liar. "You don't even believe that yourself. In fact, if I knew how to use chakra I would already have beaten you." Naruto thunked him on the back of his head, causing the kid to shout in pain. "Yeah? Then why didn't you dodge this?" "Because I don't know how to use chakra, you big doofus." "You're so full of it," Naruto shouted back. "So are you." At this point Tazuna decided to butt in. "Alright, enough. Let's eat before it gets cold." Tsuname couldn't help but smile at the boy's antics, glad to see that Inari had finally let go of the awful things that had occurred only mere months earlier. "I was thinking," after dinner the dark-haired woman started, pointing her chopsticks at the blonde. "When Naruto has taken a shower, we could go have a good old-fashioned movie night." Naruto shoved his nose under his arms and sniffed. "It's not that bad." Tazuna grunted as he slowly chewed on his food. "Yeah, brat, it is. You're taking a shower." The blonde in return shrugged and started savagely attacking his noodles, not aware of the looks Tazuna gave him or the chuckle Tsunami let out. 3 weeks later, Tuesday. Naruto was climbing up and down the tree, only using his feet and of course chakra to keep him attached to the wood. He grunted as he almost lost control, but he managed to keep himself upright. Despite the fact that he had managed to complete the task his former sensei had given the team, he hadn't mastered it, not by a long shot. The blonde was about halfway up when his concentration was broken by a sudden explosion. He tried grasping for one of the branches but failed and fell down, landing painfully on his back. "Ugh. What the F?" He suddenly jerked up and looked towards the direction of the sound. He scrambled to his feet and sprinted towards the smoke that was rapidly rising in the air. When arriving on the main street that was heading towards the exit, he saw a large group of people running to safety. He quickly hopped to the roof, escaping the mass of fleeing people. He was about to hop from rooftop to rooftop towards the smoke when he noticed a small girl by herself, with the risk of being trampled by the horde of people. He quickly hopped down and sprinted across, grabbing her and making a wild jump into a nearby alley. "Are you okay?" The girl sniffled and wiped the dirt from her face. "I don't know where my mom is." Naruto glanced around and noticed a young couple standing at the entrance of the alleyway, dodging the stampede of people. He ran to them, with the girl in his arms. "Hey you. You need to keep an eye on her while I check out what's going on." The boy was about to speak up when he noticed the outfit of the blonde and nodded, recognizing who he was. "Of course, Uzumaki-san." Naruto put the girl down and wiped the tears off her face. "We'll find your mom, don't worry. These two will keep an eye on you, okay?" She nodded once, glancing at the couple before turning her dark brown eyes back to the Uzumaki. "Find my mom, promise it to me." "I'll find her, I promise, Dadabeo," he exclaimed before jumping out of the alley and onto the roof, dashing across the rooftops, quickly approaching the origin of the explosion. With one final hop he jumped off the last rooftop and landed in front of the gate that was still under construction and wasn't even remotely close to being finished. He immediately noticed two strangers standing there, one was holding an elderly man by his throat, whilst the other was twirling a blade in his hand, kicking a pebble that lay in front of his feet. Naruto narrowed his eyes and took in the scene. Bodies were lying everywhere, the majority were the guards the village had managed to hire, but they weren't shinobi. Up against bandits they could hold their own, but against shinobi they never stood a chance. He crossed his arms and glared at the duo. He took in their features and noticed they were wearing dark robe that extended to just below their eyes. The sleeves of the robes were short, revealing their arms from the elbow down. One of them had red hair, whilst the other was a dark-haired man in his late 20s. Naruto saw the captive's pain clearly etched on his face and shouted. "Bastards. Let him go." The duo shared a look before grinning at the blonde. The one who was holding the elder man gave a chakra-enhanced squeeze, snapping the man's neck, killing him instantly. Naruto roared in anger, red chakra leaking out of his body, enveloping him completely. "You'll pay for that. That's demonic chakra, you must be a Jinchuriki." The one on the right concluded. He unzipped his robe and threw it on the ground, revealing a green outfit underneath that allowed him more maneuverability. The second quickly followed suit and tossed the sunglasses he was wearing on top of his robe. Naruto had run out of patience and dashed to the duo, crossing the distance in the blink of an eye. He swung his fist but missed spectacularly, which the two strangers instantly abused. "Now, Rigio," one shouted. Rigio slammed his leg into the blonde's stomach, slamming him straight into the other's fist. Naruto groaned and fell to the ground, but retaliated immediately by sweeping the legs out from Rigio. The dark-haired attacker tried to intervene, but Naruto saw this in time and grabbed the incoming hand and threw the stranger on top of Rigio. He quickly hopped to his feet. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Several dozens of clones appeared in a puff of smoke, all shrouded in red chakra. "Charge!" the original shouted. And so they did. They threw their fists at the two attackers, who in return had regained their composure and were fighting of the group of clones. One by one the clones disappeared in puffs of smoke. With a grunt Rigio punched the last clone in its face. "Hidai. I've not seen this technique before. It doesn't matter. They're dispatched of easily." Hidai answered swiftly, his eyes darting around waiting for the last of the smoke to dissipate. "Take this," Naruto shouted as he came from the right, swinging his fist towards the face of Hidai. The dark-haired opponent managed to block the attack and retaliated with a fist of his own. His partner chimed in and swung his blade only to be met with nothing but smoke. Another fake. Rasengan. The real Naruto burst through the white smoke and slammed his blue sphere into Rigio, who screamed in pain, trying to resist the attack, but to no avail. He got blasted into the newly constructed house left of the gate. Naruto turned to the remaining guy who only looked at the destroyed building. One left. He charged Hidai and unleashed a flurry of punches that his opponent managed to block with moderate ease. With a roar Naruto's opponent countered and kicked him in the chest, causing the blonde to skid backwards. The former Konoha charged forward once more and exchanged more blows with his foe. Every fist he swung got retaliated by Hidai. "I need to change things up, he's caught on to my fighting style." He then jumped back and slid two kunai from his shoulder strap, one in each hand. Hidai in return reached for two short blades and charged forward, his blades clashing with Naruto's kunai. "You'll pay for killing Rigio." Naruto grunted before wildly slashing with his kunai, which got deflected by his opponent. "Who the hell are you guys?" He slammed his kunai once more against Hida's blade. "It doesn't matter who we are." Hidai pushed back against the attack of Naruto and swiped his leg against the blonde's, causing him to stumble backwards. Naruto fell on his back but immediately backflipped onto his feet, tossing his kunai and immediately following with a hand sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The large cloud of smoke appeared once more and another large group of clones charged forward and across the marketplace. The creator once more, with the help of a clone pouring chakra into his hand, forming a Rasengan. "Not this time." Hidai shouted before throwing his blades into the incoming wave of clones. Two puffs indicated that at the very least they had hit their targets. He raised his hands and a shimmering mirror appeared in front of him. Naruto lowered into a defensive stance, waiting for his opponent to strike. That was until the mirror got shattered to pieces. Huh indeed. A voice screamed in his ears before he plunged his blade into the back of the blonde. Naruto fell to the ground, screaming in pain, his Rasengan along with the clones that were attacking Hidai dissipated. "I told you, you would pay for killing my partner." Naruto moaned in pain as he crawled towards the feet of his opponent, desperately clutching it. He grabbed the blade that still stuck in his back, and with a lot of effort he managed to pull it out, letting it fall to the ground. Hidai crouched down and grabbed the kid by his spiky blonde hair. "Your world will burn, everyone will die, not that you'll be there to witness it. You really don't know anything about Jinchurikis, do you?" Naruto managed to say between clenched teeth, a smirk appearing on his face. Hidai in return rammed the face of the blonde into the ground before pulling it back up, small wounds littered across his face. "Does it really matter?" Naruto's smirk turned into outright laughter. "Of course, team. We have advanced healing." A kunai slid out of his sleeve and into the young boy's hand. In one swift motion he rammed the kunai into the left side of his throat. The dark-haired opponent stumbled back as his hand clutched at the kunai, a loud gurgling sound erupted from his throat as blood started pouring out of his mouth and down his chin. The former genin slowly stood up, panting heavily. The wound on his back was already almost completely healed. Slowly the red aura that had enveloped his body disappeared. Hidai fell to his knees only to try and stand up again, his hand outstretched towards the victor. Finally, he fell to the ground, never to stand back up again. Naruto turned around, checking if the other guy was indeed dead. He looked towards the damaged building and what he saw made his blood boil and his hands clench into fists. In front of him stood a man dressed in black with red clouds adorning his outfit. He had black hair and unique lines under his red glowing eyes. Naruto couldn't help but feel fear clutch at his throat. He swallowed nervously, his rage had been set aside for fear. "Itachi Uchiha." Itachi just stood there, void of emotion. "You have improved since our last encounter." He slowly took a couple of steps forward, dragging the body of Rigio along with him. Naruto growled, dropping into an aggressive stance. One of his hands reached for the shoulder strap and swiftly grabbed a kunai, throwing it at the Akatsuki agent, only for it to pass straight through him. "Jutsu?" "But when?" "The moment you looked into my eyes. But do not be frightened, I am only here to talk." Itachi spoke as he dropped the jutsu. "Talk? What is there to talk about? You're Akatsuki. You're here to capture me." Naruto's eyes darted around, he knew the last time Itachi had found him he was accompanied by a big blue guy. Itachi walked forward once more and came to a standstill, mere meters away from the blonde, letting the body fall to the ground with a thud. "That's where you're wrong, I'm alone, the rest doesn't know." Naruto crossed his arms. "Well? What's so important that you have to tell me, a mere genin?" Itachi merely stared at him. "In a few years from now an unknown group will travel to the elemental countries. They will lay waste to our world and kill everyone," he motioned with his hand to the body next to him. "These two are scouts, here to evaluate our strength." Naruto glanced down at the body with slight discomfort. "Who are they? And how are you so sure they intend to kill us all? Every location they've visited so far has been annihilated. We don't know who they are or where they come from, all we know is that we're next." "How do you even know all this?" "An acquaintance told me. I trust him." Itachi turned sideways, he noticed the villagers were slowly starting to investigate now that the fight had finally ended. Naruto looked around, noticing the villagers as well. "Why are you telling me this? You have the potential to become incredibly strong, Naruto. I have no doubt you will play a big role in what is to come, whether you want to or not. The rest of the Akatsuki know this as well, if you didn't have the QB sealed inside you, Leader Sama would have undoubtedly approached you now that you are unaffiliated." Naruto crouched down and looked at the dead body. Guilt started welling up inside him and he looked away. Itachi noticed and took a single step backwards. "First time you've killed someone?" Naruto nodded as balled his hands into a fist. "They were scum and they deserved to die." Itachi remained as motionless as he had been throughout the conversation. "It's normal to feel those things when you first killed someone. You'll eventually learn to live with it." Itachi started slowly walking back to the gate. "These scouts are most likely the weakest amongst their ranks. Even if they are, do not under any circumstance underestimate them." Naruto smirked and stood back up. "I guess I just have to get stronger then. But don't think you guys are off the hook yet, after this is done you're next. Dadabeo." Itachi turned around and if Naruto didn't know any better, he swore he could have seen him smile. "Interesting. One last thing. You won't gain the strength you seek here. Break your bonds with this village. They will only slow you down. If you want to defeat these unknowns you have to think like one of them, act like one of them, become one of them. Become the monster they all fear you as." Naruto stood there with wide eyes. "I don't know if I can do that. Do you know what you're asking of me? You want me to give up who I am, to give up my humanity?" Itachi tilted his head, was there a hint of recognition in his eyes? "It is necessary, this is why we of the Akatsuki are so feared. Leave behind your name, start anew, and once you're strong enough, take on these unknowns." And with those words Itachi disappeared in a swirl of dust and leaves, leaving behind a saddened and confused Naruto. He looked at the lifeless body and noticed there were strange markings on the side of the man's neck moving down towards his shoulder, stopping at his elbow. He tore of the remains of his shirt and saw that it looked like a seal of sorts, drawn into a skull of a strange creature with strange markings around it. What is this? Naruto frowned and pressed his fingers against it and immediately gasped in pain as a burning sensation that started at the tips of his finger was spreading throughout his left arm. Images started flashing through his head of a creature with white hair and purplish skin who was floating. 2 red horns were protruding from his head. The images in his head were accompanied by even more pain and he screamed out loud as he fell to the ground. What is going on? Darkness consumed the boy as he passed out, his body not able to withstand the pain. He fell beside the body of Rigio. With one last glance at the seal had let darkness overcome him. Shortly thereafter the villagers started investigating further and noticed that Naruto was unconscious. For a moment they were worried that the blonde had died when they saw his still form. They sighed in relief when one of the villagers looked for a pulse and found one. They picked the boy up and rushed him to the first aid station, hoping that they would be able to help him. A couple of days later, "Rat. What have you done?" The QB roared at the blonde as tried to claw his way through the gate. Naruto stood there, stunned. "How the hell should I know that I would pass out if I touched that seal, you stupid stinking fox? All I did was touch it and." "Exactly. Do you touch everything you see? You'll be real popular with your female species." The beast barked with laughter before resuming his rampage against the gate who didn't budge in the slightest. "What's it to you anyway? I got knocked out, that's all." The blonde replied, pointing his thumb at himself. The QB roared once more, his eyes glowed red. "That's where you are wrong. Thanks to you my chakra is slowly draining away, it's going too fast to regenerate, but too slow to kill me immediately. Something is draining me of my power and it's because of the seal." Naruto took a step backwards in surprise. "You're dying." His voice was a mixture of various emotions. The QB was the bane of everything that went wrong with him. He would finally be rid of the one who had caused him great pain. On the other hand though, sadness. Sadness because the fox had become a part of him. He had saved his life on multiple occasions. "I am, but it will take some time, so don't go sentimental on me yet, brat. You should be happy that I'll finally be gone." The QB spoke, noticing the boy's distraught look on his face. Naruto nodded and shuffled with his feet. He could slowly feel the pressure fading away, indicating that he was regaining his consciousness. "I'm sorry, QB, for what it's worth, you may have been the whole reason behind my messed up life, but you weren't always a pain in the ass." The demon grinned, baring his teeth. "Pranking the entire village didn't help either, boy." Naruto returned the grin with one of his own. "They had it coming, not that it matters now anymore." "No, it doesn't. But you decided to make a stand. I respect that and as a result, I will assist you in training. I may not be able to do much, but what I do know I'll pass along." Naruto looked at him with wide eyes. Praise from the almighty QB himself. "Thanks. I'll become the strongest shinobi there is. Dadabeo." The QB slammed his enormous body once more against the gate. "Stop with that incessant screaming." Naruto could only laugh as he regained consciousness. Naruto coughed as he slowly opened his eyes, only to shut them immediately again. Due to the extremely bright lights he could hear voices around him and held his hands in front of his eyes to block the lights as he opened them again. "Naruto Nyasan." A voice shouted that clearly belonged to Inari. "About damn time, kid." A gruff male voice spoke. Naruto turned to the older voice, still not being able to properly make out the persons in the room. "Can it, old geezer. Glad to see you've woken up, Naruto-kun. I'll get the doctor." A female voice softly spoke, instantly knowing it was Tsunami. He couldn't help but smile and listened as he heard her footsteps receding as she left the room. "So, anything important happened while I was out?" he asked as his eyes finally adjusted to the lights. He looked to the left and saw Izuna standing beside his bed. "We managed to rebuild the house that was destroyed. Luckily no one was in the home when the guy got crashed into it." Naruto looked sheepishly and scratched his cheek, which turned out to be bandaged. "Were you guys watching the fight?" Inari spoke before Tizuna could. "We were nearby." "You really showed them, Nai-san. Could you teach me?" Naruto ignored him and instead asked. "How many were killed?" Izuna hesitated. "They killed 12 guard that were stationed at the main gate. Luckily no civilian casualties." Naruto grimaced when he heard just how many people were killed by these monsters. "If Itachi's right, then there's a whole lot more waiting for us." Izuna noticed the grimace and patted him on the shoulder. "You did great, kid. If you hadn't stopped them, they would have killed a lot more." Naruto silently nodded, his mind being plagued by not only the bodies that were laying there, but also by his own first kills. Blood streaming down his chin, dripping onto his face, his kunai still protruding from the man's throat. He died desperately trying to grasp it as he stumbled around and fell to one knee. The blonde snapped out of his reverie when a female doctor entered the room, closely followed by Tsunami. "Ah, good to see you're awake, Uzumaki-san. How are you feeling?" the doctor asked. Naruto flexed one of his arms, still feeling a bit sore. Doing just fine, only some sore muscles left. You can discharge me, no problem. He really hated hospitals. The doctor laughed, you sure act like it, but your body may disapprove. So let me check you out and we'll decide from there if it's wise to release you from our care. Naruto nodded and stood from his bed, realizing he was only wearing short and a shirt. The doctor stood in front of him and asked if he could pull his shirt up. He did what she asked and pulled his shirt over his head and threw it on the bed. The doctor started checking his vital signs by placing her hands on his chest with chakra slowly emitting from her hands. Alright, I've noticed nothing out of the ordinary. Your body is under a lot of stress though, so it's very important you take it easy for a while. I'd like to keep you here for the night to see if there aren't any surprises that could pop up. She stood back up and she handed the blonde his shirt. If everything goes well, we'll discharge you tomorrow. That's the least we can do after you saved our village, twice no less. She smiled at him before writing something down on her pad. She proceeded to give him a nod and silently left again, but not before Naruto thanked her and shook her hand. Naruto pulled his shirt back on and laid back down on bed, letting his hand rest on the pillow for a moment. He glanced at his new family and smiled, you guys wanna know how I beat the crap out of those guys? Azuna let out a bark of laughter. Well, we didn't see the entire fight, so I'm curious how this all started. Naruto started telling his story, waving with his hands enthusiastically. Well, it all started with this girl who was about to be run over by a large group of people. The next day, after Tazuna, Tsunami and Inari had arrived, Naruto got up and went to the closet, changing into a fresh set of clothes. He was ready to head home. It's so good to see you're feeling good again, Naruto-kun. If you're feeling well enough, we should head back home as soon as possible. Get you something good to eat. This hospital food can't be good for the patients here. Tsunami smiled as he appeared from behind the curtains in his new outfit. Let's get going. Naruto pumped his fist in the air. Sure, he was happy to leave the first aid station, but he had also had conflicted feelings about the whole situation. The killing he had done, the murders that were committed by those scouts, and of course his internal debate on whether or not to follow Itachi's advice. The group left the aid station and went home, stopping at a ramen stand for the blonde after he insisted on getting some ramen. Happily slurping his food whilst they were walking down the street, he couldn't help but feel truly at place. People were being nice to him and even stopped to make small talk to him or someone from the group. When he still lived in Konoha, aside from Ichiraku Ramen or his friends, no one wanted to talk to him, they either sneered at him or gave him a wide berth. But if I don't do something about this threat, there won't be a home left. I can prevent that from happening. They arrived at their place, and Naruto almost immediately went to his room, still deep in thought. He sat down on bed and flew his fingers through his hair. What do I do? I have to choose in what I've always wanted and in my responsibility as a shinobi. Tsunami knocked on the door. Naruto, are you decent? Interrupting him from his thoughts. Yeah, come on in. He said as he laid down on his back. She opened the door and entered the room, looking at him with worry. Are you feeling okay? You never go upstairs without having some lunch. I know you had some ramen, but that normally never sates your appetite. Naruto sat back and gave her a sincere smile. I guess I'm just not feeling that great yet. I'll take it easy at least today. I'll most likely feel as good as new after a good night's rest. Tsunami's concerned gaze almost made him waver, but he managed to stay true to his course. Alright Naruto-kun, if you're sure that that's all, I'll leave you be. Get some sleep, okay? Naruto nodded at her. I promise I'll feel better in the morning. She walked over and hugged him, which was followed by a soft kiss on his cheek. Thank you for saving our village. No matter how Konoha has treated you, this can be your home if you wish it to be. Naruto felt tears well up and he swallowed, trying to get his emotions under control. I'd like that. Tsunami smiled and stood back up, ruffling his hair before turning around heading back out the room. She picked up the basket that was filled with clothing that still needed to dry. Naruto looked at her retreating back and sighed with a heavy heart. If I don't leave soon, I don't think I'll ever be able to. Naruto stood up and decided to go for a walk, fresh air would do him good. He had to steel his emotions and make preparation. Hey old geezer. I'm getting some fresh air, I'll be back later. He shouted towards Tazuna as he opened the front door. Watch it, brat. What you gonna do, beat me with your cane? Naruto shouted back as he stepped outside, closing the door behind him, but not before he dodged the apple Tazuna threw his way. Once this was all over he could see himself settling down here. Yeah, I definitely could. With a smile he walked down the road and back further into the village. With a smile he walked down the small path. Naruto sighed in satisfaction as he pushed the flaps aside of the ramen stand, located on the market. Trade was Nami's main income of money, and because of it their economics had stabilized and grown. The difficult days for the small village seemed over. Of course raiding Gato's places and taking his money and other valuables certainly helped. He walked towards to the mortuary that was situated next to the aid station. Naruto-san. A high-pitched voice shouted, causing the blonde to turn. A small girl came running over, dragging her mother by the hand. "This is my mom." She wanted to say hi. Naruto instantly recognized the girl as the one he had saved mere days ago from being trampled. "Hey there. I'm happy to see you managed to find your mom." The mother placed her hand on the back of her daughter's head. "I wanted to thank you for saving my daughter's life. I got separated from her and I couldn't get back to her. I'm incredibly grateful for what you've done, Uzumaki-san." She bowed deeply. "Arigato." Naruto waved with his hands, trying to get her to stop. "Oh please, that's not needed, anyone would do the same thing." She smiled at the blonde. "And you did. I can't thank you enough, I'm forever in your debt." He scratched the back of his head, chuckling. "Well, if someone ever asks for me, who isn't of this village, please don't tell them anything, my stay here is kinda secret, haha." The woman nodded before grabbing her daughter's hand. "Your secret is safe, no one in this village will say a word about your presence here." She winked at him before turning to her daughter. "Come, Chia, let's get going, I'm sure Uzumaki-san has other things he has to attend to." "Bye Naruto-kun." The little kid waved as she and her mother became one with the crowd. The blonde waved before turning left and around the corner. He saw the mortuary and swiftly walked over. He walked over to the front desk. The woman cheerfully greeted the young genin. Well well. If it isn't our newest member of our small village." Naruto grinned at her. "Hi. I'm here to look at the bodies of the two attackers." The woman frowned at his request. "That is quite an unusual request, Naruto-san. However, you did save our village, so I think we can make an exception for you. It's to your right down the hallways, third door on your left. I'll call ahead to let them know you're coming." "Arigato." And with that, the blonde followed her instruction. He had to get one last glimpse at the attacker's seal. Ever since QB's shocking revelation, he had been trying to understand how it was even possible and if it could be reverted. Naruto arrived and knocked on the door. An older man in his late 50s opened the door. "Ah, Uzumaki-san. I heard you want to have a glimpse at our two latest additions." He nodded. "That's right, one of them had a seal I wished to have one last look at." The man motioned with his hand and he led them to two small metal doors and opened it. Two slabs of metal rolled out with two bodies on top, covered by a white cloth. "I know you are a ninja, so I take it dead bodies aren't a problem for you?" Naruto nodded at the man. "I'll be alright." He turned to the bodies and slowly removed the cloth. The first one was Hidai. He took a better look at the seal, but he wasn't an expert. Reaching for a notepad, Naruto made a crude drawing of the seal before putting it away in his jacket once more. The employee backed away slightly, giving Naruto his space. Naruto swallowed nervously as he pulled the cloth down from the second body, Rigio. Images of his Rasengan slamming into the man flickered in front of his eyes. He shook his head and took a better look at Rigio. He didn't have the seal on his shoulder. "That's weird, I thought they both would have the seal." Satisfied, he covered the bodies and turned back to the man. "This may be a weird request. But I need to take these bodies with me." The man looked at him with a surprised look. "I can't do that, these bodies belong to the families, despite the atrocities these men committed." Naruto insisted. These men were evil. And they weren't working alone. If their friends find out they have been killed here, they will attack the village again, and I don't know if I'll be able to stop them again. The man scratched his chin, mulling it over. "Well okay, but you have to do it with elegance because you can't just run around with two dead bodies. That certainly would attract a lot of unnecessary attention. I'll have to do it at night, when I leave." He thought as he glanced at the two covered bodies. "I'll do it at night. Take them far away from here, making sure they'll never link them to the village. I'll leave the emergency exit unlocked so you can open it from the outside." The man pointed at the door. The young nin thanked him, bowing deeply before leaving. "I'm very grateful for your help. I should be thanking you, Uzumaki-san. You saved us after all." And the man returned the gesture with a bow of his own. Strolling down the street, he couldn't help but feel saddened by the entire ordeal. Yet at the same time it was for the best. Thinking he could stay here wasn't only wishful thinking but also incredibly dumb. Once the Konoha found out that his tracks led them nowhere, they would start crossing off likely places where he could be hiding. Nami no Kuni would definitely be on their list. Once this is all over, years will have passed and their search will have stopped. I can come back here and settle down. Naruto arrived home and saw Inari just stepping out. He high-fived the kid as a greeting. "What's up, Inari?" Inari pouted as he shoved his hands in his pockets. Heading back to school, lunch breaks over blurg. Naruto ruffled his hair and walked past him. "Well, good luck with that. I'm gonna go do some training in a bit. See you later, Nai-san." "Later, brat." "Are you calling a brat? You're a brat too. You're the biggest brat here and you know it." "Dadabeo. Vivid arrest." Tazuna shouted from inside the home. Naruto walked around the house, waving at Inari. Trying to get some last-minute training in. Naruto closed the door to his room and started quietly packing his most essential stuff. "I can't let them know I'm leaving. They'll just try and make me stay. I have no time for that." He shoved spare clothing and extra packs of kunai and shuriken in his backpack. He had no exploding tags anymore, so he had to buy those at a later date in another village. The 12-year-old unrolled the map he purchased earlier. Looking at the map, Naruto realized he had to take a boat towards Kuno before traveling on foot into Yuki no Kuni. He had to create more distance between him and Konoha. They wouldn't dare setting a foot in Kuno. That should be my final destination, for the time being at least. After he was called for dinner, he made his way downstairs, taking place at the table where some bickering was going back and forth between Tazuna and Inari. He silently started eating his food, which consisted of katsudon and a bowl of rice. Tazuna picked up on his lack of enthusiasm. "Why are you all of a sudden so quiet? Are you okay?" Naruto looked up and waved one of his hands dismissively. "Yeah, I still feel a bit weakened from the fight, hopefully I'll be up and running in no time." Tazuna's eyes scanned him over and nodded. "Alright, I'll stop bugging you. But if you ever have the urge to talk, go to Tsunami, because I don't know how to handle that touchy stuff." He chuckled as he took a sip from his alcoholic beverage. Naruto grinned. He couldn't help but wonder if this is what it felt like to truly have a family. "Ah, but old geezer. Who's going to rock me to sleep tonight if you want?" Tazunba grinned and Sanama chuckled. Inari had images of Tazuna rocking Naruto to sleep and nearly choked on his food. "Yeah, and when are you going to read him a bedtime story, huh?" Inari added in, grinning like crazy. Naruto pointed with his chopsticks at the young kid. "I'll let you keep that, don't want you to feel left out." Tazuna let out a bark of laughter, downing the rest of his drink in one large gulp. Naruto returned his focus on his food and ate it quickly before helping with cleaning the table. "You can go relax, Naruto-kun, go watch some TV with Tazuna and Inari." She gave him a gentle nudge to the living room, smiling at him. Naruto grinned back at her and settled himself on the couch, watching Inari and Tazuna argue about his bedtime. "Naruto doesn't have a bedtime. Why can't I stay up as late as him?" "Because you don't kill people for a living." "So, if I kill people I'll get to stay up late." Tazuna snorted. "Yeah, if you kill people you can stay as long up as I want." "Really?" Tazuna slapped Inari upside the head. "Of course not. Now go do your homework." Inari grumbled and started walking towards the door. "Stupid bedtime, I'm almost 9 years old, stupid homework." Naruto looked at Tsunami, whom was reading a book. "I'm going to turn in as well. See you tomorrow." "Yeah, right." Tsunami looked up from her book and gave a loving smile. "Good night, Naruto-kun." Tazuna winked at the blonde, another alcoholic beverage in his hands. "See you in the morning, kid." Naruto walked upstairs and decided to take a shower. He didn't know when the next time would be when he could properly shower, so he might as well make the best of it. He undressed and turned on the hot shower, patiently waiting for it to warm up. With a satisfied sigh he stepped in, scrubbing his body from tip to toe. Whilst the blonde was showering, he couldn't help feel unsure what his goals were. For now the most important thing is to keep any threats away from Nami. He shut off the shower and stepped out, drying himself before crossing the hallway and into his bedroom. There he swiftly checked his backpack one last time, double-checking if he had forgotten anything. After he was satisfied he got fully dressed and slid under the cover. He couldn't risk making any noise when he left. He couldn't risk sleeping either. The chance that he slept through the entire night was too big. Setting an alarm could wake the entire house. This is going to be hell. Why am I even doing this? 5 hours later, 2:57 a.m. Naruto rubbed his eyes for what felt like the millionth time since he went to bed. He glanced at the clock hanging on the wall above his bedroom door. No point in waiting any longer. He silently stepped out of his bed and reached for his backpack under his bed, slinging it over his shoulder. Quietly, the youngster made his way to his door and opened it, hoping that the creaking sounds wouldn't wake anyone. He stepped into the hallway and closed it, once more wincing at the noise. He tiptoed down the hall and to the stairs. "The 2nd, 5th and 8th will wake up the entire house for sure if I stand on those, so I have to make sure I skip them." With the elegance of a drunk cat he walked down the stairs, barely dodging the creaky steps. Once he was downstairs he grabbed a piece of paper and a pen from the desk in the corner and wrote something on it before placing it on the dinner table. He gave the letter one last glance and sadly smiled at it. "Dear Tazuna, Tsunami and Inari. This wasn't the way I thought this would go, but after the fight I knew there was no other choice. I left Nami to get stronger. I can't gain the power I need if I stay here, it will slow me down too much. The 2 men who attacked weren't the only ones out there. I'm going to make sure that no one else is going to attack this village again. I wish you guys and the rest of Nami all the best. I felt more at home here this past month than I have ever had in Konoha. I hope that once I'm done I'll still be welcome in Nami no Kuni. Naruto. P.S. Dadabeo." He walked out the front door and sprinted to the mortuary to pick up the bodies. Luck was on his side for a change. There wasn't a soul awake and on the street, including an old man lying unconscious in the corner. He glanced to his right and saw the raiment stand. "And there's another downside after leaving Konoha and Ichiraku's, I found a decent replacement here. Now I have to leave yet again. After a couple of moments, he saw his destination and made his way around the back, noticing the door straight away, it was slightly ajar. He swiftly made his way to where the bodies were laying. He opened the metal doors and saw that the bodies were in 2 black bags. After confirming it were indeed the 2 attackers, he created 2 clones and ordered them to carry the bodies. "Why can't you help?" one asked. "Because I'm the boss." "Now carry it." "So you're that kind of boss? The kind that doesn't help?" the other asked. "I'll be scouting and making sure we won't be seen, now stop complaining and get moving," the creator hissed. "Am I really that stubborn?" His clones muttered something that sounded eerily like slave labor, but they complied nonetheless. They exited the mortuary and swiftly darted across the village. Naruto saw the gate and noted that the building next to it was already almost completely repaired. The original Naruto was the first one to exit the village, coming to a halt at the edge of the forest. Looking back one last time, he sadly smiled and gave a wave. "It's for the best." He abruptly turned and sprinted off, his clones following closely behind. 3 months later. Naruto ran, his head held low. His face was adorned with cuts and bruises. From the corner of his lip a small sliver of blood was trickling down. His clothes were a mess, cuts and tears were showing how severe the damage was. But despite that, he ran and he didn't stop. He jumped over a fallen tree, fluidly grabbing 2 kunai with exploding tags attached. He threw it towards his pursuers whom were mere meters behind him, obscured by trees and bushes. Looking ahead, the 13-year-old blonde could see the end of a low cliff coming up. He looked to his left and right, but the cliff reached far. With no other option left, he decided upon the course that would give him the biggest chance of survival. He sprang. As he fell down, his clothes were wildly flapping about. He reached for his pouch once more, which proved more difficult than he thought it would. Finally, able in grabbing another exploding tag, the boy prepared for the impact. Fortunately for his legs he landed in a thick bush that broke his fall considerably. He rolled out of the bush and onto his feet, the exploding tag was placed in the bushes, awaiting detonation through physical contact. The former Konoha nin resumed his dash, ignoring the pain in his legs, placing as many trees and other objects between him and his pursuers. "This is ridiculous. They've been hunting me for 3 days. Don't they need to rest? The only reason I haven't dropped from chakra exhaustion is because of QB." The ground slowly took another sharp dive and he stumbled, tumbling down the hill. Regaining his composure after a couple of seconds, he used his hands and front flipped himself back onto his feet, resuming his sprint. "I need more chakra, QB. This is the last I can give you, if I give you even more your body won't be able to handle it." Naruto grunted in response before snapping his head to the left as he heard the exploding tag burst, meaning that we're down the cliff as well. He had managed to increase the distance between them when jumping off the cliff, but it wasn't nearly as much as he had hoped. The blonde could hear something soaring towards him and quickly dove out of the way. A humongous fireball flew past him, scorching the left sleeve of his shirt. "Uzumaki Naruto, stop running and face us." A calm voice cut through the air, chilling Naruto to his core. He gritted his teeth and pushed himself to his feet. "Screw you." Resuming his flight through the forest of Kaminari no Kuni. He could feel another burst of energy erupting in his chest and knew that the QP had given more of his power. He jumped over a medium-sized rock and onto one of the higher tree branches, dashing from tree to tree, rapidly increasing his speed. He reached for his pouch and quickly counted, slightly hindering his movement. 8 kunai, 4 shuriken and only 3 exploding tags left. And I'm also down to my last smoke bomb arg. I wish I hadn't listened to Itachi. It's foolish, boy. Give up already, this running is only delaying the inevitable. A second voice said. The blonde ignored their words and continued deeper into the forest, hoping that the swamp would help him in his desperate escape attempt. Dodging another large fireball, he tried to increase his speed even more, ignoring the stabbing pain in his side. "And keep running from us, boy." The cold voice spoke. "You thought you could get away with the murder of our comrades." The second one cut through the air, definitely getting closer to the young preteen. Fear coursed through his body as he threw his last smoke bomb and jumped down at the bank of a small river. He silently made his way through the river and hid behind one of the many rocks protruding from the river. "We found you, Uzumaki Naruto." Barely able to cross his arms, the blonde could do little else before an explosion engulfed him. 2 dark-clothed figures landed at the river bank, looking at the kid's hiding spot, waiting for the smoke to clear. As the smoke slowly drifted away and thinned out, they could see a man completely dressed in a black outfit standing on the rock with Naruto draped over his shoulder. His outfit consisted of metal vambraces strapped around his wrists. He had a dark red sash around his waist and a hood that he currently had pulled back, revealing his dark ruffled hair and green eyes. The man had a smooth skin, showing his young age. He looked at the two with a smirk adorning his face. "It's him, what do we do?" one of the two asked. "We have to retreat and inform the rest that they have arrived." "Understood." As soon as he said that, they disappeared in a whirl of leaves. A man dressed in black turned around and dashed away, taking Naruto with him. Hours later, in a small village on the border of Kaminari no Kuni, Naruto groggily opened his eyes. He looked around the small room he was residing in before he suddenly remembered what had happened. How the hell did I survive? Last thing I remember is the explosion. How am I even alive? They could have easily killed me. He placed his feet on the ground and stood up. Looking down at his clothes he noticed he was wearing a white shirt with black knee-length pants. Apparently someone had changed him while he was out. The one who saved me, no doubt. He walked to the door and slowly opened it, peering into the hallway before cautiously entering it. He noticed the stairs down the corridor and silently walked down the stairs, ending up in the living room. About time you woke up. Naruto looked towards the direction of where the voice came from. He saw a man with dark hair and green eyes, wearing a black shirt along with black pants. The man looked at him in return, seizing him up. Who are you? Are you the one who saved me? The blonde asked. The man took a sip from his drink and nodded. Yep. I'm the one who saved you. The name's Hawk. Those two were hunting you for quite some time. Until they found you at Saiwaka village. You did kill two of their buddies so I can't really blame them. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. You know who they are? The man nodded. Yes, I've been tracking them from a country across the sea. That land used to be a peaceful place where disputes with other countries were rarely solved through military action. Negotiations took place. Their army was worthy, no doubt about that. But they didn't experience a lot of action, they weren't like shinobi. But it all changed. They came and slaughtered everyone. No one was left alive. Men, women and children were all slaughtered in a matter of weeks. And now they've come for us. Naruto breathlessly whispered, staring at Hawk. Hawk shook his head. Not yet. The ones we have encountered are mere scouts. They are most likely here to gain information about the locations of all the hidden villages, as well as to assess our military strength. They've also scouted ahead to find a tier. Naruto looked dumbfounded. A tier? Yes, or more accurately a chakra tier. A chakra tier appears when enormous amounts of chakra is being used in a short period of time. Or if large portions of chakra is used over time. Think of battlefields where wars used to rage. Arenas or even possibly training grounds. Hawk stood up and opened a window, letting fresh air into the room. These tiers aren't visible to the naked eye so very few people know of this. Naruto absorbed the new information. Then why are they looking for them if they aren't visible to us? What's so special about a chakra tier? Hawk grinned. Glad you asked. Chakra tiers allow demons to be summoned to our world. What? A wide-eyed Naruto gaped. Like the QB? Similar, yes. We've always thought that this was how the nine-tailed beasts came into being. These invaders want to suck demons from who knows where into our world. He stopped momentarily before resuming, but that doesn't stop there. They have a way to merge their bodies with that of a demon, becoming immensely strong. How they are doing this, we don't know yet. Then we have to stop them. Naruto shouted as he pumped his fist into the air. Hawk grinned once more. Really? I wouldn't have thought of it. I'm glad you're here to tell me this. Naruto stuck his tongue out. Team. Hawk continued. As I said before, it will take quite some time before they actually arrive, so during that time we'll have to get you stronger, strong enough to go toe-to-toe with the unknowns. Naruto cheered, jumping up and down. Alright then. Let's do it. Hawk nodded. One more thing. Sure. Anything. Stop shouting, it's making my ears bleed. He suddenly shouted in Naruto's face. Naruto's sweat dropped. Then why are you shouting? So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.